Good morning. My name is Omar Sifuna, science teacher, SUMEYA Integrated Academy in Garissa County. Okay, now to start with, the previous lesson is not connected to this. Yesterday I was covering types of water, but today I'm introducing a fresh topic, that is environment. Now, when we talk about environment, this is not the first time you are hearing about this topic, environment. You have heard it before. In your previous classes, in Standard 7, you remember you discussed about the environment, and you said the meaning of environment is the meaning of environment. You also discussed about the components of environment. In Standard 7, when you are talking about the components of environment, you said the main component of environment is 1, water, 2, air, 3, soil, 4, plants, 5, animals. These are the main components of environment, and this you discussed in Standard 7. You have to connect that. In Standard 7, you also talked about the water, the effects and causes of water pollution, still connected to this. But here in our class 8, we will discuss about soil pollution, soil conservation, and air pollution. This one you have not covered. Now we will cover here. This one you have already covered. This one you covered in class 7 and will be connected to this one, because there is no difference. We are still talking about the environment. Now, when we talk about soil pollution, we have to define. First of all, we have to understand. For today, I will cover that part, and then we will proceed later on. Soil pollution. Soil pollution. What is soil pollution? First of all, you have to understand the meaning of soil pollution before you proceed on. Now, when you talk about soil pollution, what is soil pollution? Soil pollution means introduction of harmful substances in the soil and to make it less productive. So when we talk about introduction of harmful substances in the soil, what are they? These are elements that reduce fertility of the soil, hence making the soil being not productive. Now, I say soil pollution is introduction of harmful substances in the soil, is introduction of harmful that is the meaning of soil pollution. Polluted soil is a soil that has been introduced there, harmful substances, and it makes that soil less productive. When you say the soil is less productive, means it cannot give a lot of yield. You understand, human beings and animals, plants depend on soil directly. So when the soil is not productive, then there will be no food for animals and also plants and human beings. Now, how does soil pollution, how does it affect human beings, plants and animals? It becomes less productive, and now it cannot produce. When the soil cannot produce, then we say a living part of environment is in danger. So let us talk about ways in which soil is polluted. Ways in which soil is polluted. We only talk of pollution, but now, in which way can soil be polluted? Ways in which soil is polluted. Okay, I have said pollution is introduction of harmful substances. Now, how are these harmful substances introduced in the soil? Who is introducing them in the soil, and in which way are they introduced in the soil, and what are they? So we want to see in which ways is this soil polluted. Now, there are several ways soil can be polluted, and when we talk of these several ways, we mean one is dumping of inorganic material in the soil. Dumping of inorganic material in the soil. Number two, improper disposal Number three, I mean, acidic rain. Number four, we have to talk about oil spillage. Oil spillage. In case of accidents, oil can spill in the soil and is one way of polluting soil. Now, we only talk of soil being polluted. These are now the ways the soil can be polluted. In one way or the other, although we still have others, there are very many ways soil can be polluted. Now, when we discuss about the first one, dumping or introduction of inorganic material in the soil. When we talk about inorganic material, these are materials that cannot decompose. These are material that cannot decompose. The material like plastics, metals, and other material, polythene bags, those that can decompose are what we call inorganic material. So if they are improperly disposed by human beings anyhow in soil, they pollute soil more. Second, disposal of old engine oil. Engine, you understand, engine uses oil, and we have several engines, car engine, motorist, different machines have engine, and those engines use oil. So when oil is old, you find that they go to renew. So after renewing, you find that old oil is disposed anyhow in our soil, and it pollutes the soil. Acidic rain, when it rains, you understand there is different gases in the atmosphere. As that water drops here, it collides with the air, and then the rain becomes acidic. As it enters the soil, it makes also that soil become acidic, and it affects its fertility. Lastly, oil spillage in case of accidents on roads, anywhere. These vehicles, different vessels use oil. As they get accident, you find that the oil in their engines spills all over in the soil, and it pollutes the soil. Okay, now these are the ways the soil can be polluted. Now, what are the effects of soil pollution on plants? We have the effects. After the soil being polluted in this way, it will have to affect the plants and animals. When I talk of the plants and animals, I said soil pollution will directly affect the living component of the environment. The living part of environment, when we were talking about the component of environment, we talked about soil, we talked about air, and we talked about water. The three are not living. But the living component of soil is plants and animals. Now, how can soil pollution affect the living component of the environment? Effects of soil pollution to the plants. That is the first part of living component of the environment, that is plants. And then after we will have discussed about polluted soil, how it affects plants. We will also have to discuss about animals also, because the two survive. Now, one, inorganic waste interferes with growth of roots. That is the first one. Inorganic waste, I talked about the inorganic waste, which can be polythene bags, plastics, and metallic material. This one does not decompose. So you find that when the plant is growing, the roots we might be having a plastic in the soil. So as the roots grow, they are interfered with those plastics and metallics, polythene bags that are in the soil, and you find that the crop is not that way healthy. Number two, the acidic the acidic rain is also very harmful to plants. You find that when it is raining, it scorches the leaves of the plant. It makes the leaves to start drying, hence poor production of that plant. Then we have oil spillage. Correct. Oil spillage also interferes with the air circulation in the soil. You find that oxygen and carbon dioxide is very important when it comes to animals and plants. So when oil enters the soil, that air circulation, you understand, oil interferes with penetration of air. It cannot penetrate the soil. We have living organisms in the soil. We have plants that need the air. So when it spills like that, you find that there is that interference. Then excessive fertilizers affect soil structure. Affects soil structure. Excess fertilizer affects soil structure. And then I think now these are some of the effects of the soil to plants. Excessive fertilizer affect the structure, hence low productivity. We have talked about the interference of oil spillage, air circulation. We will have a problem with air circulation, of which oxygen and carbon dioxide is very important when it comes to plant growth. And then acidic rain burns, scorches, burns the leaves, and we cannot have that could yield. Then we have inorganic material, of which I talked about, the plastics and the polythene bags. Lastly, we have to talk about germination. Inorganic wastes will still interfere with the germination. You understand, growth of a new plant needs oxygen and also other components that must be there for germination to take place. So these are how the soil pollution will have to affect the plants. Now, we have an activity. How can we carry an activity to know that this soil, polluted soil, I mean, can affect growth of plants? How can you carry out an experiment to see that polluted soil is affecting plants? An activity. For you to carry out an experiment and see yourself that a polluted soil is affecting a certain plant, we will need the following. We will need seedlings as our material. Seedlings are 3 containers, a teaspoon, fertilizer, manure, water, and watering gun. Okay, procedure. How will you carry out this experiment? Now, we have 3 containers. You will have to arrange your 3 containers like that. The second container, the third container, without forgetting soil here. Very important. Okay, now in our 3 containers, we will label container A, container B, and container C. Add a half soil. Take a sample of soil and add here a half full, a half full, a half full of soil. Then we have take the first container, add adequate manure. Adequate manure. Add adequate manure here. The second container, take 1 teaspoonful of fertilizer. 1 teaspoonful of fertilizer in the second container. The third container, we will have to add there excess fertilizer. Excess fertilizer. You can take such like it is a small container, so you can take 7 teaspoonful. That one is excess. Here is what? Here is adequate manure. Now, put here, transplant here your first seedling, and these seedlings must be of the same size and of the same age. The first seedling, transplant here. The second seedling, transplant there the third one. Now, observe. Start watering every day, morning and evening, and observe what will happen. Now, you will find that these are now the observations. You will find that the one that is having adequate manure is green and healthy. It has grown very well. The second one is having 1 teaspoonful of fertilizer, is green and healthy. And this one, because you have added there excess fertilizer, you will find that it is yellow and retarded. It's not growing, it's not green, it is yellow. Why? Because you added there more chemicals. Now, this one will prove that when you add more chemicals in the soil, you have polluted the soil and it cannot produce because that soil is polluted. Now, this one is an experiment that will show us that when you add more chemicals or inorganic matter in the soil, you have polluted that soil and the soil becomes less productive. Okay, from that activity, let us come. I think now we have discussed about soil pollution on plants, and lastly, let me talk about animals also, because these are the 2 living components of the environment. effects of soil pollution to animals. How can the animals be affected? Animals can be affected in one or the other way when the soil is affected. I said we human beings, animals, depend directly on soil. One, animals living in the soil. Animals living in the soil can suffocate and die. They can suffocate and die due to lack of air. First, I talked about oil spillage. When the soil has been spilled to air oil, there will be no circulation. You understand, all animals need oxygen. We have small animals that stay in the soil. So when there is oil spillage in that soil, there will be no oxygen. When there is no oxygen, those animals are in need of oxygen. They will suffocate and die. So they have been directly affected by that polluted soil. Number two, wild animals and domestic animals can die. Wild and domestic animals can die when they eat contaminated soil. These animals eat soil. So when the soil is having a lot of chemicals, let us say for example fertilizers, herbicides, pesticides, these are chemicals. So when the soil is contaminated with such chemicals, fertilizers, herbicides and pesticides, they are poisoned and they die. So they have been affected by the polluted soil. And then lastly, are less fertile. Polluted soil is less fertile. Hence, low productive. It is less fertile. We said when the soil is polluted, it is less fertile and it cannot produce healthy crops. Animals depend on crops. They feed on green pasture. So when there is no crops, because the soil is not fertile, what will they eat? The herbivores will have nothing to eat, so they will also suffer and they die. Now up to that point, I want to call it the end of our lesson. Thank you very much.